Hi everyone, it's Miriam. Today we're going to paint daisies in a fluid acrylic sort of way. You're going to need white, black, green, and yellow paint. And you'll need something to thin your paint like Floetrol, PVA glue, or pouring medium. And you'll need some silicone. Now for the tools you'll need, something to mix small amounts of paint in. You don't need cups for this really, except for either one cup that's going to have your black paint. Everything else we're going to be using is in such small amounts that cups would be more than you need. You're going to need some sort of pokey tool, something that has sort of a blunt end and maybe a pointy end. You might want to use a pointy end also. This is just a handle from a cheap paintbrush that I had where the paint bristles kind of started falling away. So I pulled off the end, sharpened it to a point. So now I have two ends, and this is plastic so I can reuse it. You're also going to need a drinking straw, and you need the kind that you can bend. And then finally you need a damp paper towel, a sponge. I'm using a rag, something that you'll be able to wipe your little pokey thing with periodically. Now I've gone ahead and mixed my black paint. I need however much paint to cover my surface in a nice thick wet fluid layer. So this is my favorite mix, which is 2 parts paint, about 4 parts Floetrol, and about 1 part water. And that gives me a nice sort of heavy cream consistency for my paint, which is just perfect for what we're going to need. We're going to need just a little bit of yellow paint. I'm only putting in a couple of drops because it's the least amount of paint we're going to need. And then for white, I'm going to be putting a little bit more. I think it's going to be a little hard for you to see the amount of white because it's white on white, but I'm going to say 5 or 6 drops maybe. And then as far as greens goes, a little bit more than the yellow. And then I just poured Floetrol in this cup here so that I wouldn't have to pour that big bottle. And so now you can see the mix that I'm going to be using. I am putting about twice the amount of Floetrol to the amount of paint for this. Maybe 3 times. And I'm going to mix them all up. Now I'm going to add just a little touch of darker green to this green that I can pick up if I want some. But I'm not going to mix it in. It's just there if I want it. And then I'm going to add silicone to the white. And for this amount, I'm going to put about 3 drops in. And in the yellow, 2 drops, and none, 3 went in, doesn't matter. And none in the green, and none in the black. I'm going to mix the silicone in pretty well. So remember, there's silicone only in the yellow and the white, nothing else. I'm going to move the paint out of the way because what I'm going to do now is cover my surface with a nice thick layer of black. You want this to be nice and wet and nice and thick, and you want it to cover any part of the canvas where you think part of your design might end up. Since I don't know where I want mine to end up, I'm making sure I cover the whole thing. Okay, so now we have to decide where we want our blooms. I've decided that I want one here and one here. So for ease, I'm picking up my paint and I want to put a nice big white glob right in the middle of where I want one of my blooms to be. So you want it to be a couple drops, depending on the size of your canvas and how big you want your bloom. When you do this, you'll sort of, by experience, decide how much paint you need. But for this small 4x4, I'm putting just a few drops. I don't know if you can see that it's already starting to lace up a little bit. I want this one to be a little rounder. Okay, and then wiping off my tool. Okay, now this is where the straw comes in. Now remember, I'm over here. If I was going to use the straw and blow this way, I would be shooting the paint out that way, which is not what I want to do. I want the paint to go out evenly, sort of as circular as possible. So this is why we want the bendy straw. So we're going to aim this part down, straight into the middle of the drop that we put. See, like this. And then blow. And then you blow and you decide, you'll determine how hard you need to blow to make your paint spread the distance you want it to spread. But start out low and then build up on blowing. You'll get the feel of it because everyone's different. That's one. And I think that'll be the second one. Okay. Now we're going to take the dull end of our stick and we're going to put it into the black and drag in toward the center. And then wipe. You need to wipe after every single pass. If you don't wipe after a pass, I'll show you what happens. Let's say you pulled and you said, oh, I'm not going to wipe. And you go to put it in. Well, guess what? You put white paint into your black. And I don't know if you can see that. You see it? So I then have to go fish that out. But if you wipe after every pass, this won't happen to you. So drag in, wipe. Drag in, wipe. And do this as often as you need for the number of petals you've decided you want. So if you only want 4 petals, only make 4 petals. If you want 30, make 30. This is your flower. And you're the boss of it. Now, if you decide that you need your petal to have more definition, in other words, the spacing, you want it to be more obvious, just go in a second time on the same pass, or a third time. If I tilt my tool a little bit, rather than point it up straight up and down like this, if I come at it at an angle, I can get a wider black line. See that? So now for the center, I'm going to grab a little glob of yellow and be very careful now because you don't want to drop it in the wrong spot. Come over and let it fall in the middle of your flower. Now, you have a couple of options, and I'll show you. One is to blow very gently because you don't want to make this huge yellow spot. And just stop there. So you can do that, or using your pointier spot, you can sort of spiral it into the flower like that. And then you can have a spiral that comes into it. So that part's up to you. You decide which of those you like better. And then you might pick a little bit of black and add some spots into your center like this. That's another option. I just dunked my stick into the black paint and just lightly coming into the yellow. So that's another option. So you decide on the center that makes you happy. Now, for the stems, you want to use the blunt point. Come into your green. Now, I've decided that I want my stems to start here and then arch here and arch there. So I'm going to put a big whole glob of green right here. And then I'm going to pull from here toward the flower. It's going to get very thin. And then remember, wipe, because you've dragged a lot of black onto your stick when you do that. Now, you might need to start at your flower and then come down to meet the stem. You may need to do this a bunch of times because there's a lot of black paint and it wants to swallow up the green. So you might want to wait for the black to dry a little bit. That sometimes helps. Or make a couple of passes. And then for a leaf, you pick up a glob, stick it on the stem where you want the leaf to originate. And I want one there. And then with the pointier end, pull. And then daisies have leaves that are more wavy like that. So you might want to do something more along those lines for your leaf. For fun, you can also add little details like this. And for this, you don't need to clean between passes, just to give it a little bit more interest. So, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Leave me comments as to what you got out of it and what other flowers you'd like me to try. I have a few ideas, but I'd love to hear from you, and definitely subscribe. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye now.